The sea always felt easier to understand than people. Fish followed patterns. Tides obeyed the moon. Even storms had warning signs if you knew where to look. People, on the other hand, were unpredictable. That was probably why I chose marine biology. My name is Ethan, and at 23, I was spending the summer on a small coastal island researching local marine ecosystems for my university project. It wasn't exactly exciting work, mostly cataloging tide pool species and collecting water samples, but I loved it. The island itself was beautiful. A rocky coastline stretched along the horizon, waves crashing against dark cliffs. Seagulls circled overhead, and fishing boats painted the ocean with bright colors every morning. At the northern edge of the island stood an abandoned lighthouse. The old structure had been closed for years. Most locals ignored it. Couldn't. Every time I looked at it, standing alone against the endless sea, something pulled at me. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe loneliness recognized loneliness. One cloudy afternoon, after finishing my fieldwork early, I decided to explore it. The rusted gate squealed as I pushed it open. Wind whistled through broken windows. Dust coated nearly every surface. The spiral staircase groaned beneath my footsteps as I climbed higher. Halfway up, I discovered a small storage room hidden behind a warped wooden door. Inside were old ropes, lantern parts, and boxes forgotten by time. Then I noticed something unusual. A wooden chest tucked beneath a shelf. My heart quickened. I crouched beside it. The lock had long since rusted away. Carefully, I opened the lid. Inside were dozens of letters. Hundreds, maybe, all tied together with faded blue ribbons. The envelopes were yellowed with age. I picked one up. The handwriting was elegant. To my dearest Oliver. Another. My beloved. I miss you every day. Another. Until the sea returns you to me. I blinked. Love letters. A whole box of them. My fingers trembled slightly as I unfolded the first page. The ink had faded, but the words remained. Oliver, the lighthouse shines every night, and still I wait for your boat to return. Perhaps I am foolish, but loving you has never felt wrong, even when the world insists it should. I stopped reading. The date caught my attention. 1948. My chest tightened. 2 men. These were letters between 2 men. In 1948, I sat there for nearly an hour reading fragments of their story. One writer was named William, the other, Oliver. William lived on the island. Oliver was a sailor. They wrote about stolen meetings, secret walks, shared dreams, promises of a future they could never openly have. The final letters became increasingly desperate. Then suddenly, nothing. The correspondence simply ended. No explanation. No farewell. No conclusion. The mystery settled deep inside me. I needed answers. Unfortunately, I had no idea where to begin. The next morning, I was standing on the harbor docks when I met him, and my life changed. I was watching fishing boats unload their catches when someone bumped into me. Hard. I stumbled backward. A strong hand grabbed my arm. Whoa, sorry. I looked up, and immediately forgot what I was about to say. The guy smiling at me looked about my age. Sun-tanned skin. Dark brown hair tousled by ocean wind. Bright green eyes. The kind that seemed permanently happy. He wore rubber boots and a faded blue hoodie. Fish crates surrounded him. Clearly a fisherman. Are you okay? He asked. I nodded too quickly. Why, yeah. Smooth, Ethan. Very smooth. His smile widened. Good. I'd hate to accidentally throw a marine scientist into the ocean. I blinked. How do you know I'm a marine scientist? He pointed. And you've been staring at seaweed for 20 minutes. Fair point. I laughed despite myself. His grin grew even brighter. I'm Noah. Something fluttered inside my chest. Ethan. He offered his hand. I shook it. His grip was warm, strong. And for some reason, I suddenly became very aware of how close we were standing. So, Noah said, what brings you to our little island? My research project. Sounds boring. I laughed. It kind of is. Excellent. What? That means I can show you the interesting parts. My heart performed an embarrassing little flip. He spoke so easily, like we'd already known each other for years. I envied that confidence. Maybe, I said. Maybe. He laughed, and somehow the entire harbor felt brighter. Over the following week, I kept running into Noah. Or maybe he kept finding me. I honestly couldn't tell. He showed me hidden beaches, secret tide pools, the best spots to watch dolphins. Everywhere we went, he talked endlessly. Stories, jokes, island gossip. And somehow, despite being naturally shy, I found myself talking too. About marine life, my dreams, my fears, things I usually kept hidden. Noah listened to all of it. Really listened. One evening we sat together on a cliff overlooking the sea. The sunset painted everything gold. The wind tugged at his hair. "You think too much," he said suddenly. I frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means you're always inside your own head." I looked away. "Maybe. You're doing it right now." I laughed. He wasn't wrong. For a moment neither of us spoke. Then I told him about the letters. Every detail. William, Oliver, the lighthouse, the mystery. Noah listened quietly. When I finished, he stared toward the horizon. "That's heartbreaking." "Yeah. You want to find out what happened?" "I do." He turned toward me, then smiled. "Let's solve it." I blinked. We. Just like that. No hesitation. No questions. Noah was in. And for reasons I didn't fully understand, that made me happier than discovering the letters themselves. The next few days became our investigation. We searched local records, interviewed elderly residents, explored forgotten corners of the island. Most leads went nowhere, but every day meant spending more time together. And every day made my feelings worse, or better, depending on how you looked at it. I noticed everything. The way Noah laughed, the way he rolled up his sleeves when working, the way he always walked slightly ahead before slowing down so I could catch up. One afternoon we were cleaning debris inside the lighthouse. Dust covered both of us. I climbed a ladder to reach a high shelf. Bad idea. The ladder slipped. My stomach dropped. Before I could fall, strong arms wrapped around my waist. Noah caught me. Completely. For one breathless second, I was pressed against him. Chest to chest. Face inches away. My heart nearly exploded. "You okay?" he asked softly. I swallowed. "Yeah." Neither of us moved. The room felt strangely quiet. The ocean wind echoed through distant windows. I could feel his hands. He could probably hear my heartbeat. Then someone outside shouted from the harbor. The moment shattered. We stepped apart. Too quickly. Too awkwardly. My face burned. Noah rubbed the back of his neck. "Careful, scientist." I laughed nervously. "Right?" But neither of us looked at each other for several seconds. And for the first time, I wondered if Noah had felt it too. After Noah caught me in the lighthouse, something changed between us. Not dramatically, not immediately, just enough that I noticed it. The space between us felt different, more fragile, more important. Sometimes our eyes lingered a little too long. Sometimes our hands brushed when passing tools back and forth. Neither of us mentioned it. Maybe we were both afraid to, or maybe we simply enjoyed pretending nothing had changed, even though everything had. The lighthouse restoration became our excuse to spend nearly every day together. We cleaned windows, removed rust, repaired damaged railings. Most of the work was slow and exhausting. I loved every second of it, because Noah was always there. One afternoon we sat on the lighthouse steps eating lunch. The sea stretched endlessly before us. Noah leaned back against the stone wall. "You know," he said, "when I was a kid, I wanted to leave this island." I looked at him. "Really?" "Yeah." "What changed?" He smiled softly. "I realized home isn't something you escape." The wind carried his words away. Then he glanced at me. "It's something you find." My stomach fluttered. I wasn't entirely sure he was talking about the island anymore. A week later, we finally discovered our first real clue. An elderly woman named Margaret invited us into her home after hearing about our investigation. The moment we mentioned William and Oliver, her expression changed. Recognition. Sadness. Memory. They were real, she told us quietly. My pulse quickened. What happened to them? Margaret stared toward the window. People weren't kind back then. Noah sat beside me, listening carefully. Margaret folded her hands. William lived here on the island. Oliver worked aboard merchant ships. The names suddenly felt alive. Real. Not just words on paper. They loved each other very much. A lump formed in my throat. Margaret continued. Most people didn't know, but some did. What happened? I asked. Her eyes softened. Oliver disappeared during a storm. Silence filled the room. The answer hit harder than I expected. Noah looked down. Margaret sighed. The ship never returned. I swallowed. What about William? He waited. The sadness in her voice broke my heart. For years. The room suddenly felt very small. I imagined William standing at the lighthouse every night, watching the sea, waiting for someone who would never come home. That evening Noah and I walked along the shoreline. Neither of us spoke much. The waves rolled gently onto the sand. I hate that, Noah finally said. What? That they never got their ending. I nodded. Me too. The sky darkened above us. Clouds gathered on the horizon. A storm was coming. Noah stopped walking. Ethan. I turned toward him. His expression was unusually serious. When this project ends. My heartbeat accelerated. Yeah. He hesitated. For the first time since meeting him, Noah seemed nervous. I don't really want you to leave. The world seemed to stop. Just for a moment. The crashing waves faded. The wind disappeared. There was only Noah, standing in front of me, looking at me like I mattered. Because maybe I did. My voice came out quieter than expected. I don't want to leave either. His smile returned. Small, genuine, beautiful. And somehow that smile stayed with me long after we parted that night. The storm arrived 2 days later. Violently. The kind that turned the ocean black. Rain hammered rooftops. Thunder shook windows. Most people stayed indoors. Unfortunately, Noah and I had spent the afternoon working at the lighthouse. And by the time we noticed the weather, it was too late. We should stay here, Noah shouted over the wind. Rain slammed against the glass. Lightning illuminated the room. I nodded. The narrow road back to town was impossible in weather like this. So we waited. Together. Inside the old lighthouse. The building groaned beneath the storm. Wind whistled through cracks in the walls. Rain streaked down every window. For a while we worked quietly by lantern light. Then the power failed completely. Darkness swallowed everything. I jumped slightly. Noah laughed. Afraid of the dark? No. Another thunderclap exploded overhead. I nearly dropped the lantern. He laughed harder. Definitely afraid. I'm not. You absolutely are. Despite myself, I started laughing too. Soon we were sitting on the floor near the lantern, watching shadows dance across the walls. Outside, the storm raged. Inside, everything felt strangely peaceful. Safe. Warm. Hours passed. The conversation drifted from one subject to another. Childhood memories. Dreams. Regrets. Things people usually hide. At some point I realized Noah was looking at me. Not casually. Not accidentally. Really looking. The way someone studies a favorite photograph. My pulse quickened. What? I asked. He smiled. Nothing. Liar. His grin widened. Maybe. The room suddenly felt smaller. The distance between us seemed to disappear. Outside, thunder rolled across the ocean. Inside, my heartbeat was louder. Noah's smile faded slightly. His expression softened. Ethan. The way he said my name made my chest ache. Yeah. For a second he seemed uncertain, as if standing at the edge of something important. Then he reached for my hand. My breath caught, his fingers intertwined with mine. Warm, steady, real. Neither of us looked away. The lantern light reflected in his eyes. The storm faded into the background. Noah moved closer, slowly, giving me every opportunity to pull away. I couldn't, I didn't want to. His forehead touched mine. My entire body trembled. Not from fear, from hope. Months of loneliness. Years of uncertainty. Every hidden feeling I'd ever carried suddenly surfaced all at once. And Noah was right there, looking at me, choosing me. His voice barely rose above a whisper. "Can I kiss you?" The answer escaped before I could overthink it. Yes. The kiss was gentle, tentative, like something precious. His hand cupped my cheek. My fingers tightened around his. For one perfect moment the world disappeared. No storm, no mystery, no fear. Just us. When we finally pulled apart, neither of us spoke. We simply smiled. The kind of smile that says everything words can't. Then Noah leaned forward again and kissed me once more. Longer this time. Warmer. Certain. Outside, lightning flashed across the sea. Inside, for the first time in a very long time, I felt completely found. Later that night, while organizing more documents from the Lighthouse archives, we discovered something unexpected. A hidden compartment behind an old cabinet. Inside lay a single envelope, unopened, addressed to William, dated 1 week after Oliver's disappearance. Noah and I stared at it, our hearts racing, because somehow, the story wasn't over yet. The envelope looked impossibly ordinary. Aged paper, faded ink, worn corners. Yet Noah and I stared at it as if it contained an entire lifetime. Because maybe it did. Outside, the storm had finally begun to weaken. Rain still tapped softly against the lighthouse windows. The lantern between us flickered. Neither of us moved. Neither of us spoke. Then Noah looked at me. "You ready?" Honestly, no. But I nodded anyway. Carefully, I broke the seal. The paper inside crackled with age. My hands trembled slightly as I unfolded it. The handwriting wasn't William's. It was Oliver's. My heart immediately began racing. I started reading aloud. "William, if this letter reaches you, then I have been given another chance I never expected. The storm damaged our ship beyond repair. We survived, but we were forced to dock far from home. Communication has been nearly impossible. Every day I think about the lighthouse. Every day I think about you. I do not know when I can return, but I promise I am trying. Please don't stop waiting for me. The sea carried me away, but it has not taken my heart. That still belongs to you. Forever. Oliver." Silence filled the room. The kind that settles deep inside your chest. Noah stared at the letter. His eyes looked suspiciously bright. He survived. I nodded slowly. He survived. For years William had believed Oliver was dead, while Oliver had believed William was still waiting. Yet somehow this letter had never been delivered. A single piece of paper, one lost message, and 2 lives changed forever. The tragedy of it made my chest ache. Noah quietly squeezed my hand. Neither of us let go. The next morning we brought the letter to Margaret. The elderly woman cried almost immediately. "Oh, William!" Her voice broke. She carefully read every word. Then she looked up. "There may be another record." Noah and I exchanged glances. What kind of record? Margaret stood slowly and disappeared into another room. Several minutes later she returned carrying an old leather journal. Its pages were yellow with age. The journal had belonged to William. My heart pounded. Carefully we opened it. Most entries described ordinary island life. Weather, fishing boats, lighthouse maintenance. Then, years after Oliver's disappearance, we found an entry that made us freeze. Today I received word from a sailor who once served aboard Oliver's ship. He claims several survivors were rescued. No official list exists. No proof. No names. Only rumors. I want to believe him. God help me, I still do. My throat tightened. William had never completely given up. Not even after all those years. Further into the journal, another entry appeared. One written nearly 10 years later. I no longer know whether Oliver lives or not. But I loved him. That has never changed. If he is alive, I hope he found happiness. And if he is gone, then I hope he knew he was loved until the very end. I couldn't continue reading. The emotion in those words felt overwhelming. Margaret gently closed the journal. He never married. I looked up. What? William. Her eyes softened. He never loved anyone else. The room fell silent. Somehow the story felt even more heartbreaking. And beautiful. A love that survived uncertainty. Time. Distance. Loss. That afternoon Noah and I returned to the lighthouse. The sky had finally cleared. Soft gray clouds drifted above the sea. The air smelled fresh after the storm. For several hours we worked quietly, replacing damaged boards, cleaning windows, repairing old lantern equipment. Eventually Noah climbed onto the observation deck. I followed. The view stretched endlessly. Ocean, cliffs, sky. Everything felt peaceful. Noah rested his arms on the railing. I've been thinking. That's dangerous. He laughed. Very funny. I smiled. The sound of his laughter still affected me far more than it should. Noah looked toward the horizon. William and Oliver spent years wishing for more time. I nodded. They did. His expression softened. I don't want to waste mine. The words hung between us. My heartbeat accelerated. Slowly he turned toward me. The wind moved through his hair. The late afternoon light painted silver reflections across the sea. And suddenly he looked impossibly beautiful. Ethan. Just hearing my name from him made my chest tighten. Yeah. A nervous smile appeared. One I hadn't seen before. The confident fisherman was gone. This Noah looked vulnerable. Real. I like you. The confession was simple. Honest. Perfect. And somehow that made it even more powerful. I smiled before I could stop myself. I know. He laughed. You were supposed to say it back. I do like you. No. His grin widened. You were supposed to say it dramatically. I rolled my eyes, then stepped closer. Close enough to feel his warmth. Close enough to hear his breathing. I really like you. The teasing disappeared from his face. For a second neither of us moved. Then Noah kissed me. Softly. Gently. As though he still couldn't quite believe this was real. Kissed him back. The ocean wind swirled around us. The lighthouse stood quietly behind us. And for the first time in my life, loving someone didn't feel frightening. Felt easy. Over the next several weeks, the lighthouse slowly transformed. So did we. The building that had once been abandoned began coming back to life. Fresh paint covered weathered walls. Broken windows were repaired. The lantern room sparkled. People from the island started helping. Word spread quickly. Not only about the restoration, but about William and Oliver. The forgotten love story became something meaningful to everyone. A reminder. A piece of history finally being remembered. One evening Noah and I sat together near the lighthouse lantern room. The sunset was hidden behind thin gray clouds. The sea shimmered below. He rested his head against my shoulder. Comfortable. Natural. Like he'd always belonged there. Then he spoke quietly. Do you ever think about what happened to Oliver? I nodded. All the time. The letter proved he survived. But eventually the trail disappeared. No records. No grave. No return. Nothing. The mystery remained unfinished. Until 3 days later, when a package arrived from a maritime archive on the mainland. A package containing one final clue. And the answer neither of us expected. The package arrived on a quiet morning. I was cataloging tide pool samples when Noah burst into the research station carrying a large envelope. His grin told me everything. We got something. I immediately abandoned my work. 5 minutes later, we were sitting inside the lighthouse with the package spread across an old wooden table. The documents had come from a maritime archive on the mainland. Ship records, rescue reports, passenger manifests, old newspaper clippings, the final pieces of the puzzle. For nearly an hour, Noah and I searched through every page. Then I found it. A faded report dated 1950. My heart nearly stopped. Wait! Noah looked up. What? I pointed at a paragraph. The rescue report described survivors from Oliver's damaged ship. Most had eventually returned home. One had not. The survivor's name was Oliver Hart. My pulse accelerated. Below his name was a note. A very important note. Accepted employment at Coastal Lighthouse Station in Nova Scotia. Permanently settled. Noah stared at the page. Neither of us spoke. Because suddenly everything made sense. Oliver had survived. But he never made it back. He'd been stranded. Then relocated. And somehow the letter intended for William had never arrived. One lost message. One missing connection. Two people separated by fate. But there was more. Much more. Buried among the records was a final newspaper article. A small feature written decades later. It included a photograph. An elderly man standing beside another lighthouse. His face older. Weathered. Yet unmistakable. Oliver. He had spent the rest of his life working at a lighthouse. Waiting beneath a different light. Looking across a different sea. My chest tightened. Noah quietly reached for my hand. He never stopped looking. I nodded. I think you're right. The article included one final quote from Oliver. A sentence that nearly broke me. There was someone I loved once. If he ever reads this somehow, I hope he knows I never forgot him. The room became very quiet. I imagined William reading those words. I imagined Oliver writing them. Two men loving each other across decades. Across oceans. Across silence. And somehow, still remaining faithful to that love. The island community became deeply invested in the story. Word spread quickly. The mystery was solved. At least as much as it ever could be. People donated supplies. Volunteers arrived. The lighthouse restoration accelerated. What had once been abandoned now felt alive. Every repaired window. Every painted wall. Every polished railing. All of it became part of something larger. A memorial. Not just to a lighthouse, but to William and Oliver. Their story deserved to be remembered. And now it would be. One evening, a week before the reopening ceremony, Noah and I sat together near the cliff overlooking the ocean. The same cliff where we'd watched sunsets. The same cliff where everything had begun. The sea was calm, gentle, almost peaceful. Noah rested his head against my shoulder. For a while neither of us spoke. Then he sighed. Neither of us wanted to ask it. But eventually reality catch. My university was on the mainland. My project would end. The ferry would leave. And life would move forward. I swallowed. I don't know. Noah looked down. The sadness in his eyes hurt. Because I felt it too. The thought of leaving him felt unbearable. Finally, I took a deep breath. There's something I haven't told you. His eyebrows lifted. What? I smiled nervously. I applied for a marine conservation position here. His eyes widened. What? I didn't want to say anything until I knew. For a moment Noah simply stared at me. Then he laughed. Actually laughed. The relieved kind. The happy kind. When were you planning to tell me? I just did. Terrible timing. I smiled. I know. His expression softened. Then he grabbed my jacket and pulled me closer. Before I could say anything, he kissed me. Slow. Warm. Certain. Everything we'd built together felt wrapped inside that kiss. When we finally separated, he pressed his forehead against mine. If you stay. His voice cracked slightly. I'd really like that. I smiled. I'm hoping to. The day of the lighthouse reopening arrived beneath a sky filled with silver clouds. The entire island showed up. Families, fishermen, tourists, students. Even Margaret, The restored lighthouse looked beautiful. Fresh paint, polished glass, a lantern shining once more. For the first time in years, the lighthouse felt alive. Margaret was invited to speak. She stood before the crowd holding copies of William's letters. The wind carried her voice across the cliffs. This lighthouse once watched over the sea. She smiled softly. And now it watches over a story that almost disappeared. Everyone listened. Even the waves seemed quieter. She spoke about William, about Oliver, about love, about hope, about waiting, and about how some stories deserve to survive. When she finished, there wasn't a dry eye in sight, including mine. That evening the lighthouse lantern was lit. For the first time in decades, the beam swept across the ocean. Steady, bright, enduring. Noah and I climbed to the observation deck alone. The celebration continued below us, but up there it felt like our own world. The sea stretched endlessly into the darkness. The lighthouse light turned slowly above us. For a while we simply stood together, watching, breathing, existing. Then Noah pointed toward the horizon. "You think they're out there somewhere?" I smiled. "William and Oliver?" He nodded. I looked toward the sea, toward the distant darkness, toward every possibility beyond it. Maybe. The answer felt right. Not because I believed in ghosts, but because some love stories never really disappear. They leave traces behind. Letters, memories, lighthouses, people willing to remember. Noah slipped his hand into mine. I squeezed gently. Months earlier, I'd come to the island searching for marine life. Instead, I found a mystery, a forgotten love story, a restored lighthouse, and the person I wanted beside me when the sun rose tomorrow. The lighthouse beam swept across the water one final time. And standing there with Noah beneath that light, I realized something. William and Oliver never got the ending they deserved. But maybe their story helped create ours. And maybe that was its own kind of happy ending.